Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today we have Abi Spears on. Abi was a number 10 doubles player in the world, top 5 doubles team in the world. You had 21 career titles, including 2017 Australian Open mixed doubles champion with Juan Sebastian Cabal. And you were also top 70 in singles. So thanks, Abi, for coming on.
Oh, no, thank you so much, Will, for having me. I appreciate it.
So I wanted to start I came across your information, I think on Instagram. You've got your website, abispearstennis.com, that I was going through earlier. And you've got a ton of good content on there for doubles players. But I wanted to start with just your story. Tell us, how did you get started in tennis to all the way to making it to the pro level, and then kind of where you are now?
Yeah, sure. I picked up tennis randomly in the at a junior college. My parents were flown around on a tennis court there. They had racquetball rackets. They were waiting for the outdoor racquetball rackets in San Diego.
Yeah.
And so they gave me an old wooden racket, and the racquetball courts were full. So we jumped on a tennis court, and some coach that was running the program, junior program there, just walked by and said to my parents, "Oh, your daughter looks like she'd be a good tennis player." And I was seven and a half at the time. And my parents were like, "Yeah, right. This
And you
guy
had
just wants."
never played before?
Yeah, no, I was just
Oh,
hitting
wow.
balls at the back fence.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then it turns out he just had one of the best junior programs, in San Diego. And I'd say a very, very high percentage of us all got a scholarship, in some way or
Mhm.
another, the boys, the guys too. And so it
Wow.
turned out to be a really great environment. And then a bunch of us like stopped going to his group lessons, and then sort of went somewhere else and started a group with another coach, or he
Mhm.
started the program. And so we just kind of kept on. And my dad, um, my dad helped out with both the programs to cut costs, and then he just picked up the game after I learned it, and then he got me on the court. And it was really, I mean, thanks to my parents for, putting in the hours and driving and all of
Yeah.
that. But yeah, the goal was college, but I don't think in the beginning my parents had any. They just wanted to keep me active, and I was playing soccer, and they thought that the injuries would be less in tennis, and so that
Uh-huh.
was their angle there. But
Huh.
they let me choose, so, and I chose tennis. And yeah, just amazing. San Diego, the kids that we grew up there together,
Yeah.
we've kept in touch. It's just, tennis is great for that. So yeah, so
Yeah.
now I'm retired and I'm coaching in Colorado Springs. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome.
been
Yeah, that's
yeah.
cool. So in California is a huge, obviously a hotbed for really high level junior tennis. And then I think I read you went and played at UCLA for a little bit as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I played, it was 99 and to 2000. I played 1 year, and then
Okay.
I went pro after that. And so yeah, that was I had my roommate, I had everything lined up, my deposit down for an apartment. And I didn't know we could play ITFs in the summer, and my college, Stella, encouraged me to go
Uh-huh.
play some 10,000s, and I ended up doing really well. And then just had a huge decision to make. Um and it was a gamble, that's for sure, because on paper I was playing, that first year I was playing 4 in the singles lineup, and then we were playing 2 doubles. So by no
Right.
means did I have like an amazing first year. So I just saw that I just love to compete, and I wanted to do it all the time. I wanted to compete all the time. So
Yeah.
uh, I kind of took a big risk, and um, and paid off. Doesn't always for everybody, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
it
was gonna
was
ask about that. Like, how did you like? Did you use any sort of, I don't know, was there any particular advice or something that made you decide to turn pro? And then, like, looking back on it now, would you make the same decision, say in like 2022, knowing what you know now, or like, do you have advice for anybody trying to make a decision like that?
yeah, I would say I definitely did my pros and cons list, and I went to the
Okay.
people that knew me best. And I sat down with my parents. I sat down with my fitness coach at the time, who was definitely instrumental in getting me um, to have a very long career and
Hmm.
to succeed. And also my tennis coach at the time. And I asked Vic Braden, he was helping me out here and there,
Okay.
what he thought. And then my best friend. And so I think when you go, and not always are you going to hear the answers that you want to hear.
Yeah.
Um, and when I told Stella, I think it was a complete shock. And for a lot of my friends, I think they were kind of like, well, why would you do that? You work so hard to get your full scholarship paid for, and that was your whole goal.
Uh-huh.
Where did this come about? So, and you weren't even that good. So, um, and I just, I guess it was a huge, that was, for me, that was one of the biggest decisions I've ever had to make
Sure.
besides choosing college. And I loved UCLA. I loved everything about it. I love my team. I love my coaches. And it was hard. It was really hard. So it definitely depends on the person. I wouldn't say there's a cookie cutter way to do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like you have to know your plan B. So I always knew that, if I didn't make it or I didn't succeed on the circuit, I could go back to school like every other person. And in my mind, that's what I had told myself. Now,
Right.
not everybody wants to do that or think that way. Um, and I still haven't gone back to school. So at the
Yeah.
time, I had all these goals and things just shifted, and
Sure.
I wanted to pursue this and take a risk. And I think 2022, I think I made the right decision. I had always
Yeah.
wanted to travel, and as a kid, and that was kind of my main thinking was, well, you know, in order to play professionally, you've got to travel. So this is
Yeah.
your way to do it. And it might take, longer if I go to school, graduate, and then, with whatever career I chose, to be able to travel. So there was a lot of decisions and a lot of things that went
Yeah.
into it. And it was very difficult, but there's pros and cons for both. I mean, I see if I had stayed one more year at school, or if I had finished and stayed healthy, I think that would have been a way to go. My doubles partner, Raquel, she graduated from Cal Berkeley. So when
Right.
we played the majority of our careers together. So
Yeah.
I definitely think that could have, um, in some ways, I kind of regret not finishing school. And I definitely encourage school. I think that's
Hmm.
super important. And yet at the same time, I didn't do that route. I mean, I went
Yeah.
one
Well,
year, and yeah, so
right. Yeah.
it's
It's
just
not for
depending
everybody,
on the
but
person.
it sounds like you had
Yeah.
you had kind of your backup plan, right? And that's typically, I mean, that's important with anything, right? Whether it's a huge life decision like that, or even a backup plan with double strategy, which we'll get to in a second. Um,
Yeah.
so today you said you're in Colorado. You're coaching now. Tell us about what sort of coaching you're doing. Are you at a club, or um,
Yeah,
what are you doing
I
today?
right now I'm just doing my own thing. I've partnered with Garden of the Gods Resort
Hmm.
for a time, and then for now I'm just doing my own thing. I'm working with all levels. some high performance kids, some beginners, adults, some doubles ladies, and yeah, it seems to be. I enjoy it, so I
Yeah.
wasn't quite sure which level to stick with, because I thought maybe I would, or which age, or I don't. And I'm seeming to find I love the challenge at all the
Yeah.
ages and levels so far. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. So I want to get into technique a little bit. I watched some of the videos on your site. And before I get into some specific questions, most of the listeners are going to be um, kind of USTA 3-5, 4-0 level players, focused a lot on doubles and doubles strategy. So what are some of the common technique mistakes that you see from this level of player?
Um, so something I've seen across the board is the positioning and tracking the ball and following the ball. So really the shifting as a unit, and following
Mhm,
the ball, not just where your opponent's ball goes,
mhm.
as a team, but where you've hit the ball or where your partners hit the ball.
Okay.
Uh, so that's one thing. And then
So do you
I'd
mean like
say,
when, like if I'm like if my partner, let's say I'm in the ad court, my partner hits like an angle cross court, you mean like me shifting to my left and kind of following? Okay, I see.
yeah. So if you're in the ad and you hit it cross court, and your partner's in a deuce side, so you've hit it to, yeah, cross court, you'd want to shift towards the middle,
Okay, yeah.
just to like get that middle, and then your partner would then take the line a little bit. Yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, so just tracking that. And then the other big thing is actually the debate on who takes that middle ball.
Uh-huh.
So, it's an argument. It's definitely an argument that comes around a
Yeah.
lot. And one of the biggest things, I think it doesn't matter what level you are. Like, yes, we've competed, like some of us have competed at the top, but it
Hmm.
doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't matter. I know a lot of coaches are teaching, well, it should be the forehand volley, or, if
Hmm.
it's in the middle. And what happens is, because communication, maybe you mess up and you
Hmm.
get hesitant, then nobody goes for it. And then now you've lost the point. They've hit a winner.
Right.
So I kind of teach maybe just the way I was taught, which was go for the middle, doesn't matter. And
Hmm.
whoever's in front, if you both go for it, then, and they've taken it from you, at least you've taken the action and movement to
Yeah.
cover them, take the middle, so that if they, for some reason, I don't know, miss it, that you're there. And so,
Yeah.
so that's kind of been the two like bigger things. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I usually say like take the forehand in the middle, but I guess if like a lot of coaches will teach like the staggered formation and doubles, right? So if we're both at the net and the ball is like in front of me, and I'm on the deuce side, my backhand volley's in the middle, I might be a little bit further forward while my partner shifted back. So I get first access to that middle ball, right? I get to um, take it with my backhand volley. So at that point, I guess it can be, yeah. I mean, I guess all things equal, you should both go for it, right? But I guess you can also make like a judgment call as that deuce court player. Like, is this far enough over to where I should leave it and they're going to have a forehand volley, or am I comfortable with this shot? Um, but yeah, you definitely
Yeah.
better off both going for it than neither of you. And communicating that
Yeah.
is really key for sure. Um, so one video I watched on your site was the half volley drill that you like to, or that you were doing on the video, and we'll link to that in the show notes as well. Um, the half volley, I feel like, is something that a lot of these 3-5, 4 level players struggle with, right? What technical issues do you typically see with the half volley, and how can people kind of think about improving their own half volley?
I think the biggest thing for sure is staying turned, so you can use the singles line as kind of a guideline, even if you're not like far over as like you're feeding. Like I had
Hmm.
a couple drills where I like fed myself the ball. And then pushing with your legs more than you would swing is
Yeah.
always a good, that's your driver for two reasons, for power and then a better court position, because then you're moving through the ball.
Hmm.
So yeah, so staying turned, I think a lot of times people want to rush in at any level really. So they're running straight ahead with their chest to the net, instead of,
Hmm.
slightly turned once they figure out which side it's going to. And
Hmm.
that kind of helps you just with your racket positioning, as well as just being able to run through that a bit better.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. And like I said, I'll link to the video of that drill because I liked that drill a lot, just practicing that kind of half volley.
Yeah.
So the two things are going to be making sure your turn. So if that volley comes to your left, then you're kind of turning this way. Comes to your right, you're turning this way. And then it sounds like you're saying kind of shorten the swing, and a lot of the racket head speed or momentum is,
Yeah.
is just through your legs a little bit.
Really. Yeah. And the lift too. So if
Hmm.
you've got because it's that first volley, you've got to be lower. So, and a
Mm.
wider base is so important. So you can cheat where you don't have to like bend your knees so much. But if you have
Yeah.
that bigger step and that width, you are down lower to the ground without hurting yourself. And yeah, and then keeping that ball out front if you can, as much, but lifting up. And it's hard to do. It's not so much out in front as like your regular volley, because you have to kind of keep it to have the power to go up. So it's a little bit different. It's a little trickier, but yeah, using those legs and staying sideways and then getting that lift. It's like a Nike swoosh, almost not quite like your ground stroke, but there's
Yeah.
an upward motion almost to it
Okay.
to help you.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So I want to jump into a little pro strategy before we dive back into club. So for yourself, in your own career, what would you say your biggest strengths and weaknesses were as a doubles player?
Um, Funny enough, I think probably one of the biggest ones was both. My stubbornness was both a strength and a weakness,
Okay.
because I wanted to play aggressively so
Mhm.
badly all the time and to my own detriment. So, um, so in one sense, I think that won me a lot of matches because I would push through and I would keep putting pressure on where I think maybe others would back off. But then there were just some matches where if I had just used more of my game instead of my stubbornness to attack all the
Mhm.
time, um, and mix it up a little bit more, I think it would have benefited me. So I think, that was definitely something I battled with a lot. There were
Oh,
some moments where I finally like started to use more of my game and backed off, but yeah, that was probably one of my
okay.
the biggest strengths and biggest weakness. Yeah.
So did that look like just you were constantly kind of moving forward, attacking the net, even when players might like lob you or um, I don't know, even
Yes.
when it wasn't
And
working?
all those players, yes. Yes,
Okay.
and all those players used it so well
Yeah. Yeah.
against but yeah, I felt like one of the things that Raquel and I worked on was getting back faster. I constantly felt like if I could just improve my quickness going back and have a better overhead, that I could take that off the table. And
Yeah.
so I'd work on it, but still I just did not want to give up that positioning when sometimes it's just better to get back and then
Yeah.
restart the point. And so, and I know this, and I knew it. In some matches I did it better than
Sure.
others, but it was definitely something I struggled with. So
Interesting. How did how did Raquel deal with that? Was she more of like the baseline player for you, or did she have like kind of a similar game style?
We both did like to be active at the net. I think
Okay.
Raquel would stay back definitely more than I would.
Hmm.
Um, but not that much more. We were kind of known as playing, a very attacking game. So she liked to change it up a little bit, and where I was very single track minded.
Yeah.
so
Okay.
so I think she definitely had more of a, and especially towards the end of our career, I think we had a different coach, and he definitely kind of pushed us in that direction of like, maybe you should think about lobbing more or chipping more, or
Hmm.
changing up the pace. And Raquel was definitely more open to that, and using that a lot more than I did. But yeah.
Okay.
So
Did uh so when you were doing that, did you serve and volley, return and volley, all that sort of stuff?
for the most part, yeah, there was clay
Okay.
is like really the only surface. And sometimes when we played like on a slower hard court, Cincinnati sometimes would be slow.
Yeah.
The humidity there, and sometimes at the open, sometimes we get on a slow court, but those outside courts play fast. But I definitely would stay back a little bit more on the slower courts. But
Uh-huh.
grass was, I was
Yeah.
like, get me up there. I want to
Yeah.
be up
That's
there.
funny.
So
The
yeah.
when I watch I feel like most of the women's tour today, at least most of the top teams are one up, one back for the most part, is what it seems
Yes.
like. I don't really see
Mhm.
any. I think Luisa Stefani is one of the only players that serves and volleys, but she's been injured for about a year now. Um, so she hasn't even been really in the game. But when you look at like Krejcikova and Siniakova, like they're best with Siniakova up at the net and then Krejcikova back. And um, Coco and Katie are the same way. Coco's at the back, ripping
Yeah.
backhands and ground strokes, and then Katie's the net, kind of applying pressure. So it's interesting that you see it a little bit less today. Do you have any theories as to like why that might be?
I think the game has totally shifted for sure. I mean, I grew up watching Stefan Edberg and Becker and
Hmm.
McEnroe, and I mean, Michael Chang was my first hero that really stayed back like a bit more. But I love Sampras, Agassi too. He stayed back more. But the surface, like definitely Wimbledon, the grass is slower, and they've definitely changed the blades of the grass, and you'd see, and that changes the game. Like you'd see the court worn out always before the service line, back in those days, like 90s, and even
Yeah.
somewhat the early 2000s, but 80s for sure, 70s. And even prior to that, Billie Jean and Navratilova, like they did do rallies like back there, but the guys were always, trying to serve volley. And then I loved Rafter as well.
Yeah.
So the courts have changed. I think the technology's changed a bit, and our awareness and our education on like our physical fitness and like athleticism, everything's just gotten better. So I think, whereas before it was like one track, like kind of mind, like, we're going to slice, we're going to come into net. um it's just changed, and everybody's more physical, using the whole part of the court. Not that serve volley is not physical, but it's definitely different. So there's different ways of thinking. I mean, I think it's gone through like waves of and shifts of people teaching more at the net, and then maybe more at the baseline, and so I think that has something to do with it. And I guess, I definitely feel like, I mean, I know the girls play back one up, one back a lot more than some of the top guys do for sure.
Yeah.
But there's still more guys there's more of the singles guys now playing, one up, one back. And so
Right.
I think the whole game has just evolved a bit, and a lot of more of those singles players playing. So you're just going to see that more, which it's good. But yeah,
Yeah.
I like the
Yeah.
mixing
It's a
it up.
lot different.
Um,
One of the,
mhm.
yeah, it's a lot different. It's a topic that comes up a lot, especially the strings, is a big thing that a lot of people talk about,
Yeah,
how
for sure.
the
Wrap
string technology
rings
has
back.
changed.
Hmm.
Um, so last question on pro strategy. So you won the Australian Open in mixed in 2017. How did you approach mixed doubles differently than women's doubles, if you did at all?
I'd say I felt freer because there was less pressure. And then growing up in San Diego, especially with those group of kids, I was always playing against older guys. And I just always felt
Okay.
like I wanted to, like you're the underdog and you just kind of let loose. And I think a lot of the girls feel that when they play mixed doubles, they kind of come out of their shells a little bit more and they play more freer. And so they have a little bit less pressure, I'd say. And then there's no
Mhm.
ranking per se. So I think that always makes it more fun. And I don't know, it makes me it definitely I follow the ball so much better in mixed, but you have to because the speed and you're gonna get picked on a little bit more
Mhm.
as the female out there. So but yeah, I always love playing mixed. I mean, if I could play every tournament, I mean, if they had more tournaments, I would play all the time just because I felt more comfortable
Yeah.
playing the guys.
Did you change anything in your game though when you like went out there? Would you stay back more um in mixed or anything like that? Or you just still stuck with the move forward aggressive style?
Yeah, I still stuck with that.
You
I mean,
did?
yeah, a couple times the guys were like, "Hey, maybe you should try staying back a couple and then coming forward."
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so like I said, that stubbornness would just,
Yeah.
and I don't know, it's
Well,
just I just liked being closer.
yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like it paid off at least a little bit. You did pretty well there. Um, so how do you teach, let's talk about like go back to club level strategy. How do you think about serve strategy for like 3-5, 4-0 players? What sort of advice do you give typically to your students? What sort of mistakes do you see with serve strategy?
I try to keep it pretty simple. So,
Hmm.
using the racket is just like an extension of like your throwing motion.
Hmm.
And then really trying to hone in that good toss. Cause really if we've got a good toss, you're going to be a lot more accurate with the swing. And so, I really like, for righties tossing slightly, making sure you toss slightly to the right and not so much over your head to start with. So you get that
Hmm.
coil and
Hmm.
release. And then for the lefties on the left side. But because I think there's a lot of talk about, do I slide my foot up? When do
Right.
I want to slide my foot up?
Yeah.
Um, and in some, like, if they want to learn that, I definitely teach that. It's just one more variable on timing. So at like 3-5, I just try to keep it simple. And then whatever they want to do as far as that, but keeping the motion simple. And I like the one fluid motion. So less of a pause. And then trying to
Hmm.
just hone in that toss, at the top of your racket, trying to toss it like consistently in the same place. And that's the challenge right there is usually that
Yeah.
release of the timing. Yeah.
Yeah. I still have trouble with my toss at times. So that doesn't go away above 3-5 or 4-0.
No, no, it doesn't. Tightness,
um
it yeah, definitely tight. That carries over how you're
yeah,
feeling.
yeah, it
So
does. So what about after the serve? How does the server and the server's partner kind of work together to create a game plan and try to help each other hold their service games?
I think it's definitely key that communication, hands
Yeah.
down, in so many ways before the match even starts. Like, because like you were saying before, the one up, one back, it's just it's much more popular now to play that way. So having
Hmm.
an understanding, like, how do you like to play? Do you expect me to come in? What do you expect? Like, it's a relationship. So you've got to like
Yeah.
say, what do you expect out of me? Like, do you feel comfortable me like coming into the net? Do you want me to stay back? This is how I play, or like, laid out there, like, this is how I like to play. Does this
Hmm.
work well with you? Can we play, this way? These are my thoughts. Have a conversation before you get out there, so you don't have grudges, resentment, like any of that going on through the match.
Right.
So
What's it? Can you go through maybe an example of like let's say you're about to play with somebody totally new, and knowing that you like to play aggressively and get to the net, what would you tell them? Like, um, how would you lead off or start that conversation?
yeah, I mean, that has happened. I've like changed up doubles partners here and there, and so
Hmm.
I've had to sit down and be like, well, if you haven't seen me play already, I
Yeah.
really like to come to the net. And so is that going to be a problem for you? Or, you know, if you want to stay back, that's totally fine with me. I'm all
Yeah.
for that. I'll try to move a little bit more. And then if I stay back on the first return, try to set you up. But if you want to play back on my return, that's fine too. But I will come forward. And so,
Hmm.
how does that look? How does that feel for you? And so I'll ask them, like, if, they're comfortable with it. For the most part, I've never had somebody say no.
Yeah.
Yes, so they've wanted to stay back, like,
Hmm.
off of my turn, and sometimes off of my serve. And so that's fine with me, because I still, if they're, as long as they're fine with me going forward.
Hmm.
And there definitely was a conversation here or there where, if we're getting killed, and it's like over and over again, we're getting mobbed and I'm getting
Yeah.
crushed on a low volley, then or my, like, yeah, my low first volley, if they're just gunning the return, then there's an adjustment that has to be made, like, okay, yeah, I need to stay back with you 1-2 shots.
Hmm.
And Raquel and I did that too, and other partners, where I'd stay back 1-2 shots, and then we'll see how we go, like, can I rush in after that?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that makes sense. So what about return strategy? How should club level players think about returning?
I it's so important. I mean, your serve and your return, those are the first shots.
Yeah.
That's what starts the point. You miss that, you're done. So highest percentage cross court on that return.
Hmm.
And I think a good rule of thumb for most is that they're looking so much at the net person, especially if they're active. They take their
Hmm.
eye off the ball. So really focusing, that's something we all like need to work on, is really focusing on our ball, our shot,
Hmm.
and we know where we want to hit it. I mean, most levels, people can still control it. Even the 2-5, the 2-0s that I've had, like, they've been
Yeah.
able to somewhat control it to an extent, like cross court. But
Hmm.
they know without looking, and that's like usually our problem, is we take our eye off because we're looking at that net person. So
Hmm.
really just trusting your return cross court, like, you focus 100% on this ball right here, to get that ball cross court, and that will do so much in so many ways, like,
Yeah.
for the consistency, and then just a better quality shot.
Right. And yeah, I guess you can, I love it as like when I'm the server's partner, if I move and can get somebody to like change direction and miss or something like that.
Yeah.
Uh, but in reality, one thing I tell people a lot is like, if you hit a solid return cross court, especially at the 3-5, 4-0 level, like if that person does poach, they're probably not going to put that volley away. at that level if you hit a pretty good return. So like it really doesn't matter. You don't have to avoid them if you hit a good shot anyways. Because a lot
Yeah,
of the
so
times they'll
true.
miss the volley or pop it up, or the point
So
won't be over. But then if they do beat you a few times, then you can start to kind of think about that adjustment, but make them do that first, right? Um,
yes.
and then what about the returner's partner? What should do you like to teach two back or one up, one back on the return? And then how should they think about kind of moving forward uh, around the court?
It really depends on the person and the personality again, how they want to play,
Yeah.
because some people are just not comfortable being up.
Hmm.
If they're like, if they don't trust their partner's return and they want to stay back, I'm fine with that. I do say what I prefer, which is always
Yeah.
to be up. I don't care what level you are, like, because on the other side, that pressure of just having that person there, even if they're not that good, the visual like
Yeah.
pressure is huge, is massive. So that's like half the battle. And I try to tell them that, but I give them the option. Like if
Hmm.
they if it, and it depends on their game style. Like if I have a couple teams that just want to be up there, and then I have um some ladies that want to stay back and then move forward, or they just want to
Hmm.
stay back. And so it just really depends on the personality.
Yeah. So a couple more questions, then I want to get into some rapid fire. Let's see. So how you talked a little bit earlier about teams that lobbed you a lot. How does a club level player how should they approach beating a team that just pushes or lobs?
Yeah, so I guess it depends too, again, on their game style. And if they want to take the ball of the air and come into the net when
Hmm.
they're just keep lobbing them, and then and not overclose. So they're just
Hmm.
gonna, and then they can stagger sort of even up there. So you can have the person who's already maybe up there, if the other person ran back, kind of move back a little bit. And then if the other person who retrieves the lob wants to get back up into the net, just not to move all the way back up, like service line. If
Hmm.
it's a high lob, giving themselves time. If they want to stay back and lob and then restart the point, that's usually just a better option. And then they can see the quality of their shot and then move forward. Same thing though, they gotta even if it's after like two shots, they still have to determine like where they are on the court. So I think that positioning is like so key. And then just realizing, okay, why are they lobbing me? So
Yeah.
if it's because my shot is too slow and they have time, is it because we are over closing
Hmm.
and we do need to stay back a little bit, and be patient for like two more balls and then see. And so like just getting him to think a little bit more instead of just reacting,
Right.
and trying to figure that out. Like, okay, it's because I'm too close. Okay, so I got to take a couple steps back and then hit a better quality shot, but um, not to the detriment of like being aggressive if they are aggressive. So
Hmm.
if they're counter punchers themselves and they just want to play shots, and as a team, then they're going to have to be a lot more patient than if they're getting lobbed. So
Right.
just to realize that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the one of the keys there is definitely asking yourself that question, right? And I try to teach people like to constantly be asking themselves the right questions on the court, because it's such a great way to kind of problem solve and come up with new
Mhm.
strategies to beat teams. But if you ask yourself, why am I getting lobbed? Is it because you're giving them forehands every time and they like their forehand lob, or is it because you're not giving them enough pace, or the ball's landing too
Yeah.
short, or they like depth and you need to bring them in? Figuring that
Mhm.
out um,
Mhm.
is huge. And what I feel like a lot of people are searching for when they ask, like, how do I beat these lobbers, is they want some like quick fix or something like that.
Mhm.
And in
Yeah.
reality, you have to figure out why you're getting lobbed in the first place, because the best
Yeah.
way to beat them is to prevent them from doing it,
Doing
right?
it.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Exploit their weakness. Like you said, if they have a better forehand, or if you need to bring them forward or their backhand. So true. It's like a chess game. So at that
yeah,
point, like if it's not clear cut of like a match, then you have to figure out. And like you said, I think that's so important what you said about asking questions.
yeah,
So
yeah, definitely. Um, so what about so I had um Ian Westerman on the podcast last week, from Essential Tennis, and he said, he's worked with club level players for a long time, and he said one of the most common questions he gets is, how do I win with a weaker partner?
mhm.
Um, which I found interesting, and I've talked about in the past on the show a little bit. But how do you approach something like that? What if you're playing with a weaker partner? How does your game style change? How do you support them? How do you think about that?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is knowing how they're weak. Like, is it
Mm,
one shot? Is it their, like you were talking about before, like figuring that out? Is it their forehand? Is it their backhand? How can I take the balls away? If I'm playing the ad and they don't want a backhand, how can I take the middle ball away quick?
hmm
Or getting in position and poaching, or calling plays to put them on the side they're confident on. If it's a side that they don't like,
hmm
and they don't feel comfortable going cross court on one side versus the other. If it's a second, if they have a weak serve, um, I love moving, and I don't mind getting hit.
Yeah,
And so I think if somebody has a weak serve, as a net person, they're probably going to go at you,
yeah,
and that makes it predictable, which is good. You want it to be predictable out there, and to
yeah,
play into your hands. So if they have a second serve that's just weak, or a first serve that's super weak, maybe fake,
hmm
bring it to you. It's a game within a game at that point. Like, if you think your partner is weaker than you, then you have to challenge yourself. Like, what are my strengths? What do I bring to the table that I can counteract what I think um, their weakness is? And it might
hmm
not be a weakness per se.
yeah,
Sometimes people, just they want to pick on like their partner or something, but there's a lot of different game styles. So
hmm
it's not there's not one way that's always the right way. And it just depends on like your strengths as a person. Like, if you're not active in that and you have a person that has a weak serve, okay, maybe I take two steps back and I prepare
hmm
for that. But ultimately, what you have to do, if they really are weaker in whatever sense it is, you have to take care of yourself. So
yeah,
if you are truly the best player, then 100% commitment on every ball that you get, you do the best you can. And then that positivity, because it is a team. So you
hmm
encourage them, like all the time,
yeah,
especially if like maybe it's just a down day, like everybody has them. And
hmm
it does no good to beat somebody up that you're playing with, and you
right,
want to win with. So definitely have to try to bite your tongue if you're frustrated because, they've missed 10 shots, like, and you just got to lift them up, and then you got to figure it out. Like, it is literally, you have to figure out like how to win. And that's
yeah,
that's that's what's so fun about tennis. Like, if you keep it in that challenge when you have those obstacles and you find a way to win, how like amazing that feels afterwards, when like on
hmm
paper you're like, oh, we shouldn't have won that match, but we just found a way, like,
right,
so
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Good advice there. Yeah, the uh the thing about like analyzing the weaknesses and figuring out how to hide those, I think, is a important thing. And I mean, that's, I would say that goes for like any double strategy, regardless of if you have a weak partner or not, right? It's like, I might be the strongest
Exactly.
player on the court, but I don't want to hit backhand ground strokes, so I'm going to figure out how to hide
Yeah.
that as much as I can. um
Yep.
so that's a big concept. And then also, encouraging them is like, it seems such obvious advice, but when I go to like USTA tournaments or watch league matches or something, I'll often see people like shaking their heads when their partner double faults, or oh, my dog's going crazy. Seeing people like shake their heads when their partner misses or double faults or something. And especially if they're like the weakest player on the court, or at least the weakest player on your side of the net, you doing that, like there's no way they're going to play any better if you're like shaking your head or talking down to them or trying to coach them on the court. So it blows my mind that people do that all the time, but encouragement is so important in that case because they know they're the weakest player on the court. They're not,
Yeah.
they're not
Yeah.
dumb. Like they realize it. They feel the pressure already. Like they don't need
Right.
added pressure. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's both of those are really, really good points. So I'm gonna let you go here in a few. Let's do a couple of rapid fire questions.
Okay.
What is your favorite tennis book?
Yeah. Don't have one. I'm very instinctual and I don't like to overanalyze, but I always liked positive books. So John Wooden, I like any of his.
Okay.
Yeah. So nothing really technical. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. Cool. So is that your favorite non-tennis book? John Wooden?
No,
Anything he's written?
Lord of the Rings.
Lord
Lord
of
of the
the
Rings.
Rings.
I can't
Okay.
pick one. I can't pick one.
The
Yeah,
whole
for
the whole
that series.
series.
Yeah. Goes together.
What was your favorite tournament to play in?
Australian Open. I've been obsessed with Australia since I was little. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to it for the first time 2 years ago in 2020, right before the pandemic hit, and I loved it. That
Oh,
the
yeah.
tournament experience is so
Yep.
amazing there.
Yep.
And I loved Melbourne. So,
Yes. It's a great city.
what is your favorite tennis story?
Oh.
It can be a
Oh.
story from a match. It can be a story that you've heard from someone.
Well, okay. Well, okay. This sounds so bad talking about because we won the tournament, but it's actually really cool. So my mom had dreamt that I would win the Australian Open mixed doubles before she passed away in like 2006.
Uh-huh.
And she dreamt that I would win it with James Blake. Um, but I won it with Juan, and I didn't want to tell Juan the whole tournament because he kept doing well in every round. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
I'm not gonna tell him, but I was like, I think we're gonna win it. I think this is the year. Like, we're gonna win this. And then we won it. And I was like, whoa, my mom was so right. And when she dreamt the dream of, I think James and I went, I think he had just shaved his dreads off. But if
Yeah.
you look at the picture of Juan, he's like tanner and darker, and he has a hat on. And
Uh-huh.
like, I was like, I don't know. It was just
She
really weird.
mistook him
So
for James Blake in her dream.
yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. And I
Yeah,
told Juan afterwards, and he was like, oh my gosh, Abby, this was like such a miracle. I was like, it was pretty darn cool. I was like,
that's crazy.
yeah. So I think, I know it's weird because we won it there, but I mean, it was pretty special. And my dad knew about
That's
the dream
awesome.
beforehand, and he wasn't there for the finals because they changed the schedule in the last minute, so he didn't make the flight over.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, he knew about it, so it was pretty cool. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was super special.
So last question, how do we make pro doubles more popular?
Well, uh,
It's a big
um,
question.
it is. I definitely untapped market, right? Because the majority of
Hmm.
clubs that they play, and
Hmm.
what you're doing right now, what you guys have started doing with like watching more doubles and
Hmm.
trying to get a following, I think that's so key. I know the guys have an exhibition during the week of Cincinnati. They've been doing that for years. I think we kind of asked like the WTA, and we asked the tournament, I think 1 year, if we could join forces or do something like that. Just that engagement with the fans, like, cause that's what they want to see. They want to see it. And I know we play doubles sometimes at weird times and maybe not always the best course, but getting them out there and like just aware kind of like what you guys are doing, I think is so great. And maybe just, I don't know how to beg like the tours like to combine forces. And I think they're doing more. It seems like you guys are,
Yeah.
you know, creating a following and doing more, but keeping that interaction going, like the fans that are out there, having them know who's playing. Like I know the doubles teams switch around a lot, so
Yeah.
uh, and man, I wish we could just show it more on TV. Like that's the
Yeah,
first
that would
thing.
be helpful.
Yeah, everybody always asks, man, we just couldn't see your match. Like, where were you? You know, the
Yeah.
finals of the Australian Open. Where were you? We couldn't find the match. Like, and
Yeah.
or just so many times like, well, it wasn't posted or wasn't listed, or so getting it on TV would be, and they just always want to see more doubles. And
Hmm.
so if we had some wealthy benefactor who could just
Yeah.
just create another channel or something, I don't know, but I don't know what
Yeah.
it's going to take. But you guys are doing a great job. I think just that
Thank you.
awareness and interaction
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah. If we get that wealthy benefactor, that'll kind of shorten our timeline on some of our goals. But
Just tweet Elon, and then
yeah, I'll tweet Elon. I'm sure he's a big doubles fan.
yeah, there you go.
um, yeah, but yeah, we'll get there one day, hopefully. So,
Yeah.
Abby, thanks a ton for coming on. We learned a lot, and maybe we'll do it again sometime. And for everyone listening, you can get everything we talked about in the show notes. Check out Abby's website at abispearstennis.com. And I will talk to you next time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Will. Thanks for having me.
If you want to become a smarter doubles player and start winning more matches, then join the Tennis Tribe Doubles Strategy newsletter. Every single Thursday, I'll send you a new doubles tip or tactic that you can use in your very next match. And when you join, you're going to get a free guide on how to play with more confidence and start dominating at the net in doubles. My name's Will. I'm the founder of the Tennis Tribe, and over the last 5 years, I've worked with players at every level of the game, from USTA 3.0 players all the way to Division I college programs, as well as some of the top 10 doubles players in the world. And on Thursdays, with this strategy newsletter, I share that knowledge and advice that I've gained over the years with you. So to sign up, you can go to thetennistribe.com. And again, you'll get that free net play guide when you join.